Now, the A3+ group has reaffirmed in New York its commitment to supporting Syria's unity and stability, calling for an end to the Zionist military operations and for the withdrawal of the entity from the entire Syrian territory. Massaud has the details.
In a statement delivered on behalf of the A3+ group during a UN Security Council meeting on Syria, Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ammar Benjama, stressed supporting Syria's unity and stability, urging responsible action and a Syrian-led process under Resolution 2254, while welcoming Resolution 2799 as a step that strengthens Syrian institutions and stability.
The A3+ reaffirmed their commitment to supporting Syria unity and stability. We call on all stakeholders to act responsibly, to uphold international law, and to contribute to a future that reflects the aspirations of the Syrian people. We believe that progress in Syria must ultimately be anchored in a comprehensive Syrian-owned and Syrian-led political process in line with the key principles of Resolution 2254. We welcome the adoption of Security Council Resolution 2799. The Council's decision sends an important political signal. We trust that this development will not only strengthen the functioning of Syrian institutions, but also contribute to creating the conditions for greater stability.
On the security front, Mr. Benjama warned of renewed Daesh activity in Syria and urged coordinated actions, stressing that lasting security requires improved socioeconomic conditions.
The A3+ remain gravely concerned by reports of renewed activity by Daesh in parts of Syria, particularly in areas where security gaps persist. Such developments are a reminder that terrorism continues to present a serious threat to the country and to the wider region. We call for coordinated and determined effort to counter this threat. In this regard, the A3+ emphasized that security gain cannot be sustained without parallel improvement in socio-economic conditions.
The A3+ group also expressed concern over the visit carried out by the individual referred to as the Prime Minister of the Zionist entity and its Minister of Defense to southern Syria without prior notice and without coordination with the authorities of the country, calling for this violation to immediately cease and for the withdrawal of the Zionist entity from all occupied Syrian territories, including the Golan.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Now, in Sudan, more than 100,000 people have fled Al-Fasher and nearby villages to Tawila in less than a month, turning the remote Sudanese town into an enormous settlement of tents and shelters, overwhelmed by exhausted, hunger families searching for missing relatives. As conditions deteriorate rapidly and thousands remain trapped outside the area without access to aid, the Norwegian Refugee Council, a humanitarian agency, among others, warned that Tawila is on the brink of a major crisis. Radio Algeria International contacted the regional media advisor for East and Southern Africa from Nairobi at the Norwegian Refugee Council, Kar Shambri, who provided details on the dire humanitarian situation in the town of Tawila.
There's widespread atrocities happening in Al-Fasher, where hundreds of thousands of people are fleeing from. Thousands of people have arrived in Tawila. They are lacking everything from water to shelter. My colleagues there to provide emergency aid and to inform the world of what's happening there, because more people keep arriving, more families keep arriving there in need of everything. Our support to these people fleeing is immediate life-saving aid, so food, water, and shelter. But of course, the numbers are huge and we can't manage to reach everyone. We have children that we are trying to get back into education as well after months of being out of school, and supporting them with trauma, dealing with the trauma they've been through, psychosocial support, making sure that they can keep functioning as they survive this very difficult part in their life. The needs are tremendous. We need water. We need to stop the spread of diseases, which is a huge risk given the lack of water and sanitation.
To the Western Sahara Fire, the collective of Sahrawi human rights defenders Kudisa has published a report documenting more than 38,000 crimes and serious violations committed against Sahrawi civilians in Western Sahara by the Moroccan occupation during its 50 years of military presence in the territory. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres warned on World Children's Day that children's rights worldwide are under direct attack and called for urgent action to create a safe and equal world for them.
Right now, children's rights are under attack. Poverty and emergencies are stealing education. Climate chaos is jeopardizing futures, and new dangers lurk in the online world. Too many children already carry burdens far beyond their years, earning income or caring for siblings. And famine and war have robbed thousands of the most basic right of all, the right to life. Every child's circumstances are unique, but every child has the same rights, no matter who they are or where they live. On World Children's Day, let us listen to children, and let us amplify their voices as they stand up for their rights. The future is defined by how we care for the next generation. We must unite to build a safe and equal world for every child.
At the heart of the Amazon rainforest in Belém, Brazil, world leaders, scientists and activists have gathered for COP30, a pivotal United Nations climate change conference marking a decade since the Paris Agreement. The following is a special program about this event, compiled and presented by our colleague Massaud.
Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. Today we bring you a special report on COP30, the United Nations Climate Change Conference, taking place in Belém, Brazil, in the heart of the Amazon rainforest. This year's summit carries enormous weight. It marks a decade since the Paris Agreement. Governments are expected to present stronger, more credible climate commitments. The choice of Belém as the host city highlights a simple truth. There can be no stable climate without healthy forests, thriving biodiversity, and the protection of indigenous peoples who safeguard these ecosystems. COP30 has brought together governments, UN agencies, scientists, civil society, youth movements, and financial institutions, all working to define the next decade of global climate action. From the very first session, COP30 adopted a tone of urgency, balanced with cautious optimism. Delegates note clear progress. Emissions are slowly declining, renewables are expanding fast, and markets are shifting. But the gap between current efforts and what the climate crisis demands remains significant. Talks focus on accelerating the energy transition while ensuring fairness for developing nations. UN Climate Chief Mr. Simon Style said that emissions are falling, renewables are leading energy, and the focus is being on a fair transition with more clean energy and efficiency.
10 years ago in Paris, we were designing the future, a future that would clearly see the curve of emissions bend downwards. The emissions curve has been bent downwards because of what was agreed in halls like this, with governments legislating and markets responding. But I'm not sugarcoating it. We have so much more work to do. Renewables overtook coal this year as the world's top energy source. Investments in clean energy and infrastructure will hit another record high this year, with investments in renewables outstripping fossil fuels 2-to-1. Because we have already agreed we will transition away from fossil fuels. Now's the time to focus on how we do it fairly and orderly, focusing on which deals to strike to accelerate the tripling of renewables and doubling energy efficiency.
This moment represents a turning point, a test of whether global ambition can finally match global necessity. A key theme at COP30 is the transformation of the global energy map. Renewables now dominate new power capacity, attract record investment, and reshape national economies. Yet major hurdles persist. Many countries still lack grids, storage, and financing to scale clean energy. Delegates are exploring ways to support emerging economies through technology transfer and stronger infrastructure. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said that renewables now lead new power outpacing fossil fuels, calling for faster action to meet COP28 targets for renewables and efficiency.
The global energy landscape is changing at lightning speed. Last year, 90% of new power capacity came from renewables. Global investment in clean energy reached $2 trillion, 800 billion more than fossil fuel. Renewables are now the cheapest source of new electricity in nearly every country. They are powering prosperity and empowering communities long left in the dark. Every dollar invested in renewables creates 3 times more jobs than a dollar invested in fossil fuels, and clean energy jobs now outnumber fossil fuel jobs worldwide. The renewables revolution is here. But we must go much faster and ensure all nations share the benefits. At COP28, countries agreed to transition away from fossil fuels in a just, orderly and equitable manner, and to triple renewable energy capacity and double energy efficiency by 2030. The mandate is clear. Now we must close the delivery gap.
While the clean energy revolution is advancing quickly, COP30 insists that it must now advance equitably, lifting both developed and developing nations. Another major pillar of COP30 is the review of nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. These commitments show how prepared countries are to cut emissions and protect vulnerable communities. Early assessments reveal progress, but still far from the scientific pathway required to limit warming. That gap has sparked intense debate about ambition and accountability. Mr. Guterres said that current climate plans fall short. A temporary 1.5 degrees Celsius overshoot is inevitable, and urgent action with deep emissions cuts is needed to stay on track.
Nationally determined contributions have been a barometer of countries' climate ambitions. The latest NDCs represent some progress, but we must be honest in the summit of truth. The plans and policies on the table are still far from enough. Science tells us it is still possible to keep temperature rise below 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. Yet, a temporary overshoot above 1.5 degrees, starting at the latest in the early 2030s, is now inevitable. But we can manage the scale and duration of that overshoot and bring temperatures back down if you take serious action now. And action requires deep emissions cuts, 60% by 2035, to stay on track to meeting 1.5. The new NDCs deliver just a 10% reduction. We need an acceleration plan to close the gaps in NDC ambition and implementation, and that acceleration must start here in Belém.
COP30 is now widely described as a summit of truth, where the world must decide whether to close the ambition gap or accept the consequences of delay. Forests are central to this year's conference. In Belém, the Amazon stands as a vivid reminder of what's at stake. It regulates rainfall, stores enormous carbon reserves, and sustains millions, including indigenous communities. Brazil has placed forest protection, indigenous rights, and nature-based solutions at the center of COP30. Delegates are discussing how to value standing forests, reduce deforestation, and fund forest nations. The UN Secretary-General said that the Tropical Forest Forever facility makes forests more valuable than cleared land, and stressed halting and reversing forest loss by 2030.
Tropical forests are vital to climate stability. They protect water and soils, store and remove billions of tons of carbon, regulate rainfall, shape weather patterns across continents, and sustain millions of people. Without tropical forests, there is no path to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. We are dangerously close to a tipping point that could push these ecosystems beyond recovery. Crossing that line would unleash droughts, fires, and biodiversity loss on a scale humanity cannot control. We have pledged to halt and reverse forest loss by 2030. Now we must deliver. That means supporting forest nations, not as a favor, but as a shared duty, cutting emissions from deforestation and preserving forests' immense capacity to store carbon.
These discussions underline a fundamental reality. Protecting forests is not optional. It is foundational to the global climate stability. Finance remains the most difficult issue across all climate conferences. Developing nations facing the worst impacts are demanding predictable, scaled-up support. Negotiations are focusing on long-term climate finance, reform of development banks, more concessional loans, and new financial tools. Delegates are also debating the design of a global loss and damage fund. The Secretary General urged closing the climate finance gap, mobilizing the $300 billion pledge, and boosting support to help developing countries meet Paris commitments.
We must close the financing gap for most mitigation and adaptation. To keep the 1.5 degrees limit alive and deliver universal energy access, annual clean energy investment in developing countries outside of China must rise more than fivefold by 2030. Developing countries can't get there alone. The 300 billion promised to developing countries by 2035 must be fully mobilized. The Baku to Belém roadmap to $1.3 trillion by 2035 must restore confidence that climate finance will flow predictably, fairly, and at scale. Multilateral development banks, as President Lula said, must be made bigger, bolder, and better able to leverage far greater private investment at affordable costs. Innovative forms of finance must be developed, including debt for climate swaps, risk-sharing mechanisms, and bold instruments like the Tropical Forest Forever Fund, not forgetting the contribution of carbon markets. And we must keep pressing forward on reforms of the global financial architecture so it reflects today's world and serves the needs of developing countries. At COP30, let's renew the great promise the world made a decade ago in Paris by kick-starting a new decade of implementation and acceleration.
The question of climate finance will likely determine whether COP30 is remembered as a breakthrough or another missed opportunity. Despite progress in renewables, current global trajectories still lead to dangerous warming. The window to keep temperature rise below 1.5 degrees Celsius is closing quickly. COP30 has therefore become crucial for outlining what must be done. Deeper emissions cuts, a faster fossil fuel phase-out, and major investment in clean systems centered on people and equity. Mr. Guterres warned the warming will exceed 2 degrees Celsius without urgent action and called for halving emissions by 2030, achieving net zero by 2050, and supporting a just clean energy transition globally.
Even if new national commitments are fully implemented, the world is still heading for clearly more than 2 degrees of warming.